Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today we're continuing our series on Seen, Known, and Heard, and we're looking at what it means to really, truly be heard. And, we've talked about what it looks like to be seen, we've talked about what it looks like to be known, and now we're looking at what it looks like to truly be heard. I want to start this with a story. So, oftentimes, my kids will be vying for dessert, right? Like nobody's business. They want dessert every night of the week, all the time. Of course, that doesn't happen, but they're always trying to make the case. And they'll say to me, Mom, don't answer me yet until you've listened to the whole thing so that they can get their full argument in before I weigh in. Has this ever happened to anybody or anyone for that matter in your life? Tried to make the case and prefaced it with, hey, don't respond until I'm done with the whole thing, because there might be something on the end there, some kind of incentive that's going to sweeten the deal and talk you into letting me have dessert. But it got me to thinking when I was writing about what it looks like to be heard, that oftentimes I totally stop them before they finish their sentence because I feel like I know what they're going to say. I know where they're going with this, right? I know them pretty well. I know their personalities. In large part, a lot of their personality comes from me. So I will interrupt them and immediately, I'll say, no, we're not having dessert tonight. So that's why then they started saying, hey, you have to listen to the whole thing before you say no. And now, while this isn't fun, I was really challenged by this because I thought, how many times are there other people in my life that I know really well? Maybe they're friends, maybe they're family members, and I anticipate what they're going to say without even knowing that I've anticipated what they're going to say. And so as I'm talking to them, I am already thinking to myself, oh, they're going to say this, or they're going to mean this, or, they always do that. Look for always and never statements, right? That always comes up. And so when we really know people pretty well, we have a good understanding of their common patterns, but our tendency can be to cut them off before they finish because we think we know what they're going to say. So in our minds, we hear certain words or phrases, right, that are common to them. And, we've heard them before, and we immediately reach certain assumptions in our minds. And if it's a triggering pattern, we can shut down. And then if we shut down, then we're not hearing at all anymore. And it creates complete disconnect in the relationship. And I wonder if you can think, as you're listening to this, think of a situation where this has happened to you, where you thought, oh, they're going here again. I can't even listen to this. I can't listen to this one more time. I am just shutting down. I'm shutting them off. That's it. And then likely you didn't really hear much of what they said. You probably just looked for a way to get out of the conversation. Now, I want to preface this with, this work is really hard. Like, this is not really a fun thing to think about, but it's something that we all face. It's something that we all do. And I want to challenge you to think about how you might be able to not shut down. And in the book, I ask myself, I said, I'll just read this part. I wonder what would happen if I recognized that this was a pattern that was triggering for me, but consciously, actively listened and thought of questions to clarify what the other person meant. I think the key here is actively listening for what the other person is saying and not saying, and then thinking of clarifying questions to ask to stay connected, even in confusion or presumption. And the reason that I wrote this, and the reason I think this battle is worth the fight, it's worth it to ask clarifying questions, is because oftentimes our assumptions are not right. Or even if they are right, the person's heart deep down is good. And there's something there that is blocking them, or some kind of woundedness or previous hardship or difficult dynamic in a relationship that is impacting their response, and it's overflowing onto you, and that can be not in a positive way, and that's really hard. And you also don't necessarily deserve what you're encountering or experiencing, but this allows you to perhaps shift your mindset to see them in a different light and ask some questions to help them also think about what they're saying. And you'll find when you start to do this that others become more aware around you. They become more thoughtful of their words. And so in this way, everyone has the opportunity to lead others. Whether you consider yourself a leader or not, you are a leader to the people around you that you encounter at the gym, at the post office, at your job, at home, with your family, at school, all the places you go, at work. We lead with our words, we lead with our presence, we lead with our demeanor, with our attitude, and we lead ourselves with our thoughts. And so we have the opportunity to consider how others are heard and how we are heard and how we can hear our own selves. And a lot of this comes down to observing what people are saying and what they are maybe not saying. So, body language here can also convey a lot of different things. And this kind of work really does just require us to zoom in and really focus. And a lot of times this is really hard right now in our culture because we are in a very fast-paced culture and we operate a lot on sound bites, short snippets of information. We are constantly just doing the fly-by-night, right? Doing the drive-by as we are just scrolling through social media posts or emails or things like that. And so it's really, and myself included, it's a different wavelength to slow down and to sit in front of someone and talk and have a face-to-face conversation and listen actively and not be distracted by notifications. So let yourself be able to practice this. Let yourself just take a pause before responding to someone. That's a great gift that you can give to others and to yourself. It's okay for there to be some stillness or some silence, in the conversation, because that will help you be able to formulate a question if you have a question about something. So ask those clarifying questions. Try to hold back from making assumptions, even if you know the person well, because there may be something under there that you don't know yet, that you haven't really truly understood about them, maybe because they haven't revealed it to you or haven't let you see it. And it could open up a little bit of a safer space for both of you to share a little bit more without assumptions. And that always leads to more connection, which leads to really a more fulfilled life. And so you can give others the gift of being heard, and you can also give yourself the gift of being heard. And that just it really looks like you just kind of watching yourself during the day. Like, oh, wow, okay, I just saw myself do that. That's interesting. Or I just said that. Where did that come from? And getting curious about yourself, not in a judgmental or a shameful way, but just in an observatory way so that you can see what's happening with yourself. And, tone of voice can say a lot, right? And the words, obviously, that we speak play into this. There are a lot of different factors, but you'll start to notice all these things. And we talk a lot more about this in the book, in the chapter of heard, and how to really practice this with others so that it can strengthen your relationships. And so I would encourage you, if you are interested in that, there are chapter previews that I've been sharing. So thanks so much for listening in. I hope this episode was encouraging to you. As always, that's our goal. If you loved it, please give us a rating, a review. That always helps. And for more, head to www.storywork.co, and we'll see you soon.